All right, so let's waste no time. Let's jump in. Let's skip 10 years now. Let's jump into the Avengers, right? So in
Oh,
this case, I'm gonna forego, where I was back then when I first saw it, because I think all of us were pretty much in the same mindset. We were probably not so much in the same cinema, but we went in with the same expectations, and this film definitely exceeded them, right? So what I will say though, just as an intro before we jump into the film, right, is how this because at the time, right, when Iron Man came out in 2008, right, that was a big deal, right? And
yeah.
it was just a huge success. We had seen it for the first time in theaters, just had a blast watching it, right? But something told us, just stick around for the end, because we were hearing scuttlebutt across the internet that we have something coming up in the end. And
Yeah.
that's where we got that moment where, with Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark, rest in peace, Tony Stark, meeting Nick Fury, played by, the incomparable Samuel Jackson for the first time, right? And just the mere fact that it's Samuel L. Jackson playing
Right.
Nick Fury, that blew my mind, right? I know it's
Yeah.
the same thing
I,
for
I,
you
I know
guys,
that
right?
I know they planned the scenes for that in the comics a while before, so it was like that big of a shock. But like, oh shit, they
In the
actually
ultimate, yeah.
yeah, the Ultimate Universe,
Oh,
right?
right. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
you're right. Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
what was shocking is that they actually go and like pull the trigger on that now. So it's like, oh shit, they actually doing it. Like even Sam Jackson for one, I was surprised. Like, oh okay, like they had him in mind for a hot minute now. Like
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But it's when he dropped that line, just that phrase, Avengers
yeah,
Initiative,
I say,
right? I will
I
never
say,
forget the audience I was with, me and all too. We were like, like just
yeah,
screaming down
yeah,
the place. Right? We
yeah.
were so excited, right? Of course, we had to wait a while, for the films to drop, right? But it was fine, you know what I mean? Because we knew that this thing was gonna happen. We wasn't sure how it was gonna happen or when. That's the thing, right? But
It
we
was
knew
worth the
it was
wait.
coming.
It
Yeah.
was worth the
It
wait.
was, it was, right? So, there was Iron Man 2, there was Thor, there was, the Incredible Hulk, right? And of course, there was Captain America, the first Avenger. I'll never
Right.
forget, because, we got used to this by now. We waited
Right.
till the end of that movie now, and then we saw the promo basically for the
Yeah, it was
Avengers.
basically a trailer.
It was a trailer.
Right.
I
No,
was like, all right, nice,
I
nice,
remember.
nice.
I remember being in Trinity for that.
Oh, me
And
too, me too. I
yeah,
was, yeah, I went there to see it too.
yeah, and so it was me and my brethren and a bunch of comic nerds who's always beat up in comic shit for all the time. And I remember the woman who was the like either she was the janitor or the usher, I forget what she was. And she's like, hey, I'll get up and go home now.
Oh, when did
like,
the zoo guys be like, no, do you not
yeah,
know what this is? We
yeah,
waited till it
I
ends.
was like, no,
Waited
yeah,
until we
like,
see distributed by Walt Disney, blah, blah, blah,
yeah,
and
yeah.
then we get up, right?
So she matched it yet now, but like people was waiting for it, and then the lights cut back off, and it's like trailer started, like, oh shit, they gotta do the Avengers next word. And like, nice. Yeah. Hype, real hype.
Exactly. So cut now to 2012, right? I don't know if it was the same thing for you guys, but for me, Avengers was such a big deal. I had to go to IMAX to see this, and I think this was around the time when the digital IMAX was fully established now. So yeah, this literally was the first film that I saw there, right? Went
Right.
with a few friends, went to VIP, so we were at the back with the leather seats and all that. And we were just enjoying this movie from top to bottom. Like this was just such it's still to this day a crowd pleaser of a film though. And yeah, it's still to this day, just looking back at it 10 years from now though, it just amazes me at how much they got right though. And why saying this though, before we get to your quick thoughts on this experience of watching the film, is that there was so much room for it to feel, but
Yes.
thankfully, because they just took their time, they built the characters. They didn't just throw everybody just in just like that. You know what I mean? They gave enough time, right? And even though they sorry?
Justice League.
Yeah, exactly. They didn't try to jump the gun and try to do too much, like say Justice League, right?
Right.
But yeah, they took the time to build the characters, and even if some of the films didn't really land as well as all that, right? Like Iron Man 2, for example, this film in particular still gave you enough character moments for you to be like, okay, this is why I should care about this guy. This is why I should care about this character. This is why this character needs to be in this film. And that's one thing I absolutely love about this film here, Trey. So yeah, Ricardo, just quick experience with this movie here, The Avengers.
Right, yeah. So it wasn't my first IMAX film. I think that was John Carter, which was like we saw $60, whatever.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
But
all right. I know. I don't remember why I didn't see it because I was in the States back then. So
okay, right.
yeah, I probably would have seen it then. But I was like, nah.
Right. But yeah, so I went to see Avengers in IMAX as well, and I was just so impressed and blown away. And again, much like with hearing Sam Raimi was going to do Spider-Man, look at the time, and like we know he's kind of a villain nowadays, but Joss Whedon.
Yeah, Josh Whedon though, like Firefly, Josh Whedon.
Yeah, exactly. He was a person. Like I was never the biggest Buffy fan. Like I'd like Buffy, but I was a very big Angel fan, right? Absolutely loved Angel.
Oh, okay.
And I was a big fan of Angel and how that show was playing itself out, and I was enjoying a lot of that. And then I absolutely love Firefly as well, right?
Yeah. We had to mention Serenity, bro.
Well, Serenity. That was even
great closer to that series.
Great. Yeah, that kind of operates like a season finale. This fella coming in, was the operative in that, what do you call him? Gosh, Moro, no, I forget the actor name.
She would tell you.
Chiwetel Ejiofor, right. There's a film that just come together so well. Again, hearing Joss Whedon's name on it, it's like, all right, well, perfect. This is like exactly what we needed to do. And you could tell by this point, Marvel was right. They had their head on a swivel. They knew what they were doing in terms of like getting this stuff right, learning how to crack the code with it. I was still like hesitant about a cinematic universe and if they could really make it work. And mostly because of just seeing Iron Man 2 on the first tour. Like I like Captain America and I actually thought they nailed that first film, to be honest. Loved the first Iron Man, but I was like, the tour wasn't all that hot for me, and Iron Man 2 was kind of a mess. So I was wondering what they're gonna do with this and how they're gonna get it to work. And then on top of that, they had to bring in a couple of extra characters. So like, all right, let me see what they're gonna do. And the hype starts, and then I saw the film pretty early. Like, I don't know, the launch day was the Friday, and in Trinidad it's come out like the Wednesday, whatever it is. I saw it the Thursday night, and I was like,
okay.
Yeah, and I was like just so blown away by it, John. I was really impressed by it. I did not expect it to be so awesome. And we could talk about like why I think this film works so well, but it gets into something deeper about the nature of cinematic universes, and you learn something kind of like dark and deep about DC, because 1 year earlier DC had a little film called Green Lantern, and Green Lantern was kind of a mess, right? Like a complete mess. But here's the thing with that. What was kind of weird to me, I was like, wait, how come a Justice League movie didn't come out yet, and Avengers movie come out before Justice League? That kind of weird, right? Because the prevailing narrative at the time was, well, DC had all the IP under the one banner. WB could do anything you want, and Marvel had a struggle, and Marvel had to sell off, and they had to buy back stuff to make it work. And look, they had to use these B and C list characters to build the universe. Look how Marvel had to build back, and that was a completely false narrative. Because what you learn, and you only know it now, is that actually DC is the one who more tied up in more internal bullshit and legal chicanery. And why you can't use these characters here or there or not. Here's a quick question. When was the last time you saw live action Batman on television?
Good question.
Very good question. It can't be done. You notice that, right?
Yeah.
It kind of can't be done because it who movie rights and TV rights and all of that stuff. So you realize that it's a kind of DC in their internal like rat's nest of IP law, and who's gonna get that actually have a harder job of getting the shit together compared to Marvel. And that is like a big factor why they can't get the shit together. Like that is like, in my opinion, probably the number one factor, I would argue. And yeah, the Marvel and them they just take their marbles, they take what they could work with. Iron Man is a good character, modernize him, build from there, and then slowly but surely just chip together and then give you like a real damn good script with this Avengers movie. And I don't know, I still think I think I ranked it as my second film for the decade, because it is the
I remember that.
Right, yeah. Because Marvel, much like how Spider-Man shaped the superhero decade of the aughts, this more or less shaped the superhero decade of the tens. Like it's the movie that everybody used the template for building from here and there. Everybody who failed or floundered after that, they failed or floundered, right, because they were trying to be the Avengers and they failed. That's effectively what happened, in my opinion.
That's right.
But the weird thing is that in the 90s there was a chance for Tim Burton to make a connected DC cinematic universe. From Superman Lives.
Yeah, exactly. They were trying to do this shit from a long time, and you realize it's utterly shocking how they can't get this right. Like Superman is particularly troublesome. Like there's a great book about this. I forget the name of the book, but basically it's something like Superman versus Hollywood or something like that. And they just get into the full narratives of why they just keep fucking up Superman. But it is a general problem with DC characters all across the board, to be honest. And it's just kind of weird how they just keep messing this up. And Marvel, again, DC was winning the all the others' game. So they had a big comics. The comics was doing better. All the other stuff, the cartoons was doing better. Like, yeah, the DCAU was flourishing at this point. Well, it ended with Justice League in the mid-aughts. But for some reason, the movies didn't work, and it's because Marvel took the big gamble and got away with it. And they ended up winning off that game. So now Marvel, quote-unquote, winning. And we can get that back and forth about who getting through with that. But in terms of the big name, right now, it's Marvel, right? Everybody's tuning into Disney Plus to watch goddamn Moon Knight. Might study that now. And, that is the world we're living in right now. And yeah, this is where it starts. This is, to me, where it really starts. Like, this film just worked so goddamn well, where it could have failed. It could have absolutely miserably failed. And it just come together and stitch together so well. And it did it for one. It did one simple trick. And it's a trick. You can only say that shit after the fact. I'm saying it's simple because I'm talking 10 years later. But what they understood was meta-narrative. That's what they understood. They understood the internet was a thing. They understood how people are going to be talking about this as a thing. How they have to reference the world as it is, reality as a thing. So that is why the characters and how the actors is looking like and acting like each other in the world, because they're like celebrities in the world as it is. And it's a meta-narrative about the world and the nature of the Avengers in the world. Like, it's a really clever conceit. These guys understood that. Kevin Feige completely understood that, I think, back in 2011 or whenever, 2010 or whenever they started shooting this. Like, what they have to do, how to make it work, how to create a skeptics. So they have Loki and I forget the council guys, but basically the council guys who's doubting Nick Fury. Have those guys be the ones to say, hey, the Avengers is a bad idea.
The World Security Council.
World Security Council, thank you, right. And it's like, yeah, there's a bad idea. And it's like, no, it's not a bad idea. It's a great idea, and I'm going to show you why. Same thing with Loki. They have an internal fanboy, Coulson. Them little things. It's all these little world building, extra world building things, and tying it to the audience and making it work. And yeah, this movie is a total success in its own conceit. Yeah, but we eventually started to talk about it.
All right, that was a lot. Okay. Yeah. So Tracy, your quick history with the Avengers.
For me, it starts with, there's two things that crosses my mind that I leading up to this. It's that teaser. I can't remember which movie it was, but it was that teaser that says next summer, some assembly required.
Right.
It's weird how these things stay in your mind. Some assembly required. And you get to see the little shots of everybody coming together. And I think in that teaser, that's when Nick Fury asks, what are you willing to do? I think he was asking Thor that. And it was sometime before that, a friend of mine who is a huge comic nerd had given me to read the Ultimates. There was the Ultimate Avengers, and seeing Black Nick Fury, who very much looked like a Samuel L. Jackson type and all this kind of stuff. So getting to read all of that and then going and see our film, it's amazing to me as a sidebar. It's amazing to me that 20 odd years later, I'm still in the back of IMAX watching people leaving as the credits roll, and it's like, are you stupid? But anyhow, don't we know how this thing works by now? And going in and sitting down and seeing the Avengers, seeing how this thing played out. This was, I mean, like, everybody talks in terms of like their favorite Joss things, but one of my Joss things is Dollhouse, for all intents and purposes. Right. Dollhouse was something that I absolutely love. And Joss was a guy who I wouldn't say like I wanted to pattern after, but he was an inspiration. So when I found out that Joss was going to be like, okay, Joss is actually going to be the one who is putting this team together. And I remember the Comic-Con hype, and you had all of them coming out on stage, and the music, and the whole leading up to it was just, it felt like a celebration. And it's one of those things, we could talk about this at some other point in time, but it's one of those things that kind of slightly aggravates me as I move further along in the MCU, because phase one, there was something about phase one, not just the idea of will this work, but I've complained enough times to people, like, I don't need too much Skittles, and I feel like sometimes the jokes can be overbearing. I feel like sometimes it's either way too bright or some sort of randomness or the other. But phase one on the whole had a vibe where it was like, this is the right amount of humor, this is the right amount of action, this is the right amount of storytelling. And Avengers was able to pull all of that together and put it in a nice little bow and wrap it. As a side thing, I to this day still walk around like when somebody calls a Zoom meeting and I don't really want to be in it, be like, I recognize that the council has made a decision, but since it's a stupid ass decision, I have opted to ignore it. Because, it's stuff like that. So that's my little rambling there on heading into Avengers.
All right. And lastly, Daniel, your quick history with the Avengers.
Well, my journey starts in 2008 when I first saw the first Iron Man movie. And a lot of people, I admit, were kind of skeptical of it because it's like, Iron Man, who's Iron Man? But with me being a kind of a comic book fan, it's like, Iron Man, the arch enemy of Mandarin, and all these little things. But I went in and I was utterly surprised, like, yo, this is actually a really good movie. Then Iron Man 2 came, and I have my own ideas about that. They should have given Jon Favreau some creative freedom. And instead of shoehorning S.H.I.E.L.D. in there, they should have just made a S.H.I.E.L.D. movie with Black Widow, featuring Black Widow. Leading up to the Avengers, I enjoyed all the movies of Phase 1. I don't really have much complaints. It was actually during CXC that the Avengers movie came out, and I didn't watch any trailers because I didn't need to see any trailers. I already knew that there was an Avengers movie coming, and I knew I was going to see it. So it's like I didn't need to see anything. I just wanted to go in blind, go in cold, and let me see what it is unfolding in front of my eyes. Joss Whedon, I don't have much of a history with. I haven't really seen any of his work. Although I knew that Buffy was around, I knew Buffy was a huge thing. I didn't really watch Firefly. I didn't see Buffy. Whoever made this movie, Joss Whedon, I was like, okay, let's see if he can pull it off. And in the middle of CXC, my mom was telling me, you need to study. Go and do your exam first, and then I'll take you to see Avengers. I was like, no, I need to see this movie now. So she took me to see the Avengers, and I utterly enjoyed it. So let's talk about it.
All right, so let us see how fast I can run through this story, right? So pretty much we begin at this NASA/S.H.I.E.L.D. facility, right? So Nick Fury and Maria Hill, they arrive by chopper, right? So and of course Agent Coulson is there to pretty much wait on them, right? Apparently there's some energy surge that came out of what is then called the Tesseract, right? They're doing some tests on it, right? Basically, and if you remember the Tesseract, that was the sort of like box-like energy source from the first Captain America movie.
Right, and well, they hint at it in a post-credit scene, I think, in Thor.
Yes. Actually, yes. For a long time, I watched Thor, right? And speaking of Thor, Dr. Selvig is there as well too, right?
Right.
He's testing it as well, right? And while all this is going on, Clint Barton, aka Hawkeye, he's monitoring the whole situation, right? Suddenly, a beam shoots out of the Tesseract, and a portal opens, right? And out of the portal comes Loki himself, played by Tom Hiddleston, right? And it was just so weird watching Loki just be this, look at me and you insignificant insects, all that kind of stuff, right? I compare that to the existential crisis he literally went through last year with the Loki series, right? It's just amazing. This kind of scene before and after, right? But that was really interesting, right?
He is burdened with glorious purpose.
Yes, I love how he says that there too. I am Loki of Asgard and I'm burdened with glorious purpose. Like, I legit forgot that cause I remember it from the series, of course, right? But I forgot he said that in this movie. For such a long time I haven't seen this, right? And of course, as he comes in, he's attacking S.H.I.E.L.D. and that's the person that I like. He even uses his scepter to pretty much brainwash Hawkeye, right? Fury tries to escape with the Tesseract, but in a briefcase, but Loki catches wind of his attempt, and it's there's a moment basically where after he introduces himself, you see Dr. Selvig's like, Asgard, you mean, oh, you're Loki, brother of Thor, right? Mm-hmm. I love where Fury says, we have no quarrel with your people. And Loki drops the line, an ant has no quarrel with her boots. Yeah. Remember that line? That line gonna come up again, back. Final exam.
It comes back.
Yeah. And then he brainwashes Selvig, right? So pretty much he picks up on Fury's plan, because basically his plan is just to bury Loki by blowing up the roof of the facility. Remember, it's underground, right? Hawkeye shoots Fury with his firearm. I think this is one of the few times I ever see Hawkeye with a gun, but whatever. And he grabs the briefcase, right? And together with Loki and Selvig, they escape, right? And the building more or less crumbles and whatnot. Maria ends up escaping because she tries to chase after them, but with no luck, right? And well, of course, Loki goes off with the Tesseract, right? And yeah, I mean, and now you have Nick Fury pretty much just trying to figure out what to do, and he only has one plan, and of course that leads to the Avengers, right? Now we get to the moment that one of the moments we've been waiting for, basically the assembling of the Avengers, right? So we begin with Black Widow. She's being interrogated in this random abandoned warehouse by this Russian general and his two goons, right? And this is clever bit where Coulson calls Natasha's phone, right? Okay. And the general answers like, okay, well, I'll pretty much blow up the building because he's in this F-22 jet, right? Unless he puts her on the phone. And then, well, he tells her that Clint's been compromised, and pretty much as Natasha hears that, she starts to beat the shit out of the three guys, right? There's a blink and you miss it moment where you see like a computer, basically, like you're seeing footage of Natasha and Clint together fighting during some military operation. I thought it was really cool, but I love how it just kind of sets up their
and it's implied. Yeah, it's implied this is the Budapest thing. I'm not sure.
I assume so because they brought it up near the end too. Like, I forgot what Hawkeye says. Like, something about
Black Widow was like, this is like Budapest all over again.
You and I remember Budapest.
That's very differently.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But you glossed over that intro there where he actually got the scepter, and they hint to that guy who I can't remember his name, the character's name, who gives him the scepter and is talking about the idea of the Earth will be Loki's, but the universe
that alien dude. For the life of me, I can't remember.
I think it's the other. I think is his name.
He's supposed to be like one of these, like Thanos's right hand
at the time.
Yeah, right.
Until he got killed later on.
Right.
So right after the fight and all that, Coulson asks Natasha to talk. Pretty much asks her to go to talk to the big guy, right? And I love how she assumes it's Tony Stark because the last time we saw her was in Iron Man 2, but it's like no, the big guy, right? It kind of reminds me of Batman Forever, like no, the other car, right? It's kind of like that, right? Mm-hmm. And the big guy actually, I remember this being not so much of a huge deal, but again, because this was early in the the MCU, I was like, all right, they actually recast Bruce Banner, so now they get Mark Ruffalo. Okay,
yeah, it's the second big recast in the franchise, right?
Yes, the first one with the replacement of Terrence Howard with Don Cheadle. It's like, all right, well, okay, MCU.
So that's the thing. That's why I keep saying like you shouldn't have to be too hesitant and don't leverage yourself on a particular actor or anything like that. Edward Norton is a great actor, but you could get rid of him because he's a problem. Sorry. So and Mark Ruffalo is a solid character actor, so I actually prefer the call.
I was actually thinking, I was watching the movie the other day, and I was thinking, because Joss Whedon is a television guy, I was wondering why he didn't push for someone like David Duchovny to play Bruce Banner.
No.
Oh God, no.
It had nothing to do with it had to do with like actors' contracts and what do you call it, SAG stuff. So that's not happening.
Okay.
Yeah. I want to do it like a lot of like which actor union you're part of and whatnot. So that's why like TV people can just transition to movie people, because like there's a big drama right now going on with the Flash. Like we're not sure if what's going on with Ezra Miller, and other people say no, we'll just get Grant Gustin to do it. But like that's not how that does work, and it's not that straightforward. Like you can
I know like Kobe Smulders and Clark Gregg, they are like TV actors, no? So
right, they're TV actors, but it's not. Again, is what contract sign and who and where. Like, by the time the company was doing another project by then, and it's a whole lot of bunch of things. So that's why you can just get up and do that. Like, again, the reason why it's relevant now, and I think about it now is because you can just up and get Grant Gustin to be the Flash in the movies now. Like, you had to kind of do a lot of lawyering and chicanery. I mean, look, they get Spider-Man in the MCU, so it's not like it's impossible. But, I don't see it happening.
Yeah, understood. Right. So in terms of Bruce Banner now, he's shacking out literally in Calcutta, right? He's trying to avoid stress. So you have this nice little convo between him and Natasha. You got to remember this is the first time they actually meeting each other, right? So yeah, basically he reluctantly agrees to help them out, in terms of locating Loki, right? And the idea, with the Tesseract is that it emits radiation, well, gamma radiation. So with his knowledge of gamma radiation already, he's like, all right, well, I should be able to help you guys pick it up, right? Up next, we have Captain America, right? And then we get that post-credit scene from the old Avengers promo, basically, from Captain America, the first Avenger. But they expanded it a lot more. The conversation goes a lot longer. I really, really dug that. Pretty much Nick explains him what's going on and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, it works. And it's just great seeing how just this guy who literally was in ice some days ago, pretty much saying, oh, another guy wanted to conquer the world. All right, I understand. You know what I mean? That's perfect.
Okay, so I got it it was more like a few months because so I think the movie had some missing sequences. So he had a life. He set up an apartment and they had this whole scene where he was visiting. He was in New York, I think, and he's talking to some waitress. Because that same waitress shows up later, but it's cut in the theatrical cut, kind of weird. So it wasn't like just days; it was a little longer.
Right. Understood.
Yeah. What I like about this movie is that you don't need to know the previous films to make sense of this.
Yes. Yes. That's what I was going to bring up.
Yeah, it doesn't really rely on your you need to watch 5 movies prior or some bullshit like that. Like a lot of MCU films kind of like that, but the MCU has done a reasonably okay job with handling that, like not throwing people out of the discourse. You can just jump into any one of these films and then make sense of it. And
but I mean, like to be fair, like you have to see the films and in terms of familiarize yourself with the characters, right? But you don't need to remember every.
No, but kind of. But you see, this is why I mentioned the meta-narrative stuff earlier, because you literally don't have to watch these movies because you have a whole goddamn cottage industry on the internet that will tell you, which way the other, and some YouTube thing, and they have a whole bunch of people who literally that's a career just talking about this shit, telling you about this shit. Making sense of it.
You could go online and basically get a recap.
A full recap. Yeah.
Recap the MCU in 60 minutes.
Yeah, you understand it was not trendy. It was more like a kind of a settled, everybody's talking about it as a passing phase. No, it was more like a settled lake. Not like a in and out tide. It's more like a caldera lake that's settled in terms of the pop culture narrative. People don't understand how much second order things that went into causing this to be as big as it is. And yeah, as I say, because of the nature of media consumption, it changed the paradigm of how you're going to consume these movies and make it work.
Yeah, you're right. So up next now we get Tony Stark, right, aka Iron Man, right? Again, rest in peace, right? He's doing some fixes to Stark Tower. Basically, he's built an arc reactor to power Stark Tower, which eventually will become the Avengers Tower soon enough. Which that kind of stuff, right?
Right. It's self-sustaining, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was cool seeing Pepper Potts here, she's still with him. It was cool hearing a pre-Vision Jarvis as well too.
Right.
That was pretty cool. So basically Coulson shows up, because he urgently needs to talk to Tony, right? And he kind of gives him this EPK now of sorts to kind of show him, this is the Avengers here, this is who we're gonna pick and all that kind of stuff, right? I just love how it ends with Tony noticing the Tesseract, and he's just kind of looking at it, and it's in comparison to the whole arc reactor stuff that he's using, the whole idea of power and how to use it, right? And that has more or less followed on with the Age of Ultron, right? So now Bruce and Steve arrive at what they assume is a SHIELD aircraft carrier, right? This is one of the great reveals in the film, right? And then Steve meets Natasha for the first time, Bruce meets Nick the first time, I just like how it's revealed that it's not actually an aircraft carrier, it's actually a helicarrier, right? So
there's a great joke with that later, involving $10.
Oh, okay, right. Basically, it's a bet that Steve Rogers makes with Nick the moment he comes in. When he comes in,
He's telling them the world has gotten even stranger than you know.
Yeah.
Yes. It's like the moment that he goes inside once the helicarrier lifts off, though, that's where he gives him the $10. I just love how just easy. Nick just takes it from. It's just so simple, but it works,
Yeah, this sequence is a lot of great character beats in terms of Coulson and Steve. I love this. Just Coulson.
And Steve. I was now wondering what exactly it is that he had that Coulson had. What was it? Was it stamps or
trading cards?
Trading cards. Trading cards from since the time of the war. It was Right, yeah, exactly. But
Yeah,
it's
because they
Coulson's-
actually established, for those who don't know, that Coulson is a huge fanboy of of Steve, right?
I watched-
actually
I
Natasha
watched you-
told Steve
I-
this like as he came in.
I watched you while you were sleeping.
yeah.
Yeah, like
But-
I know it's meant to sound awkward too, but it works. It works. It's it's him fanboying in a
Right.
sense, right? But it
And
works.
what I like is just it just set up Steve as just being very reassuring to everybody. So like when he meets Dr. Banner, and he's like, "Is that all you heard about me?" It's like all I need to know. I love it. Simple.
Yeah.
So, like-
If it's one thing this show does
Right.
very well, though, it's just dialogue, just those lines, and they just see so much by while seeing so little, right? I love that, right? So,
I remember
yeah, go
Joss was saying that his angle for the Avengers was to basically plot it from Steve's perspective.
Right.
So even though like some of the lines and even the way how Steve takes prominence, because he just come out of 1940 something. So Joss said that he wanted to make it from Steve's perspective, and then everything else kind of flowed around it. So
Right. Yeah, and they have because the line with Coulson of we could use a little more old fashioned. Like I like that. They make it, as they say, centered around Steve in that sense. It's like, yeah, that's why this gonna work, or why they're gonna win is because they have Steve Rogers on their boy. He's not the most powered, he's not the smartest, he's not the thing. He's that just him, his personality, and him just being a general good guy now.
Yeah,
That's
he's just
why it
competent. He's
Exactly.
competent.
Yeah.
Especially in the third act, right, which you'll get into in a bit, right? So, she'll basically locate the Tesseract at the spot in Germany. Cap's assigned to investigate, right? Meanwhile, Clint proposes to Loki that they steal some iridium that will help stabilize the Tesseract's power, right? The basically plan is to open this portal, so not Loki, sorry, Thanos's army. Oops, I said Thanos, right? Army, the Chitauri would show up, right, later on to pretty much invade Earth, right? That's the plan, right? Hawkeye does his bow and arrow thing. Loki does his hit people with the scepter thing. Was inside pretty much this museum in Germany where the iridium is hidden, right? And Loki just start feeling himself at this point now, as he's telling all the attendants to kneel before him, right? Just so cocky way. But I always love that about Loki in this film in particular. 'Cause I felt like just to be honest, sorry.
The eye thing when he stabbed the guy in his eye.
Yes.
Yeah.
To help Hawkeye, open the little vault thing to get iridium, right? Yeah. I always loved how much of an improvement Loki was in this film compared to Thor. Because in Thor, to me personally, well, the few times I saw it, right, I still appreciate the film. I don't hate it, right? I always felt like he was just like, oh, Odin loves you, Thor, and he doesn't love me.
Right.
Here's like, yo, look at these insignificant humans, right? They never see me before, so yeah, I have power, you don't, right? And he just coming off real brash and whatnot. That's what I love about him in this film, right? So as Loki about to pretty much vaporize this old man, now Cap shows up just in time to save the day. And yeah, he's rocking his new quote-unquote costume here, right?
Which don't work. The lighting was terrible on this. Sorry. It's probably the worst Captain American outfit, in my opinion.
Well, I mean, you had to start somewhere, right? That's in my opinion, right? So you have a little fight. Natasha is there in her jet, basically like just having the gun turrets targeted at him, right? And I love how Tony just kind of disrupts her transmission and says, Agent Romanoff, you miss me? Then Iron Man shows up. You hear any metal music in the background. He hits Loki with a couple of repulsor rays, and Loki's forced to stand down, right? And this is where Tony and Steve meet for the first time, right? And that's when the audience is wondering, where's Thor in all of this, right? Loki catches wind of his arrival at the moment where they're in the plane as they go back to SHIELD headquarters now. You see thunder and lightning. So it's like, Thor's in the area, right? Yeah. And yeah, Thor show up though. I don't remember how it was back then. I imagine the ladies in the audience when I first saw it was swooning the moment they saw Chris Hemsworth. I don't blame them. He shows up inside the jet now and gives Iron Man one punch that sends him flying, right? And then he literally nabs Loki and flies off, right? Iron Man goes after him, followed by Cap.
That whole sequence is great because you have a lot of great lines in it. So the old man was like, "Hey, we see a guy like you before, and I didn't stand up to him then." And then Cap back it up. I'm like, "Yeah, good line." And then
yes. I love the Nazi.
The last time I was in Germany and I saw someone standing above everybody else, we ended up disagreeing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
And it's like, there are always men like you, and so on. So like,
yeah. I love that. I love that.
Yeah, and when they was in the Quinjet, a lot of great lines from there. With his I have a plan.
I'm not overly...
Attack.
Yeah.
I have a plan. Attack.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that.
Need a plan of attack. I have a plan attack.
Yeah, I have a plan attack. Yeah.
When Natasha was telling them, yeah, you know, these guys are basically gods, and he's like, yeah, there's only one god, ma'am. Doesn't look. I'm pretty sure he doesn't not dressed like that.
Pretty sure he doesn't dress like that.
Beat line.
Great lines, though.
Yeah.
You know?
There's that bit that I was thinking of where he hears the thunder, and Cap asks him, "What are you afraid of? A little lightning?" Right. It's a line that Loki says specifically, where he says, "I'm not overly fond of what follows."
Yes,
and that's when you see Thor stamping on top of it. It's just
good. Like, listen, this is Joss Whedon at his best. Like, regardless how you could knock him now, and people who try to, you know, a lot of people, I kind of annoyed at how people is just be performatively hating on him nowadays. Like, yeah, he's kind of an asshole and like kind of a terrible person. But like, just cut this shit about him and his dialogue. There's some really good stuff he always used to get. And yeah, I don't know, his stuff just flow. It is absolutely perfect for this material.
It is kind of like glorified TV dialogue though.
Yeah, no, but you need to have it like flow, like because you need to flow crowd now. Like what does TV dialogue mean? What does that mean in the year 2012? Like that makes it inferior somehow.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
Exactly. Yeah, it's about getting a bunch of characters bouncing off each other. Yeah, it kind of quippy. No doubt. People don't really talk like that, but it flows in that mix of theater and realism now. But yeah, go ahead now.
Right. So Loki and Thor now have this actually really brilliant conversation though, right? And it's basically about Loki wanted to rule Earth, and Thor pretty much went to protect Earth. You know what I mean? And it's all about Loki just wanted to assume dominance because he never really got it in Asgard. It's just great though. And it ends brilliantly where Thor says, "You listen well, brother," and then boom. and then Loki's like, I'm listening.
I'm listening. Yeah.
That response to is priceless. I love that, right? And then we just get this kick-ass fight scene between Iron Man and Thor. Easily one of the best scenes in this movie.
Another great line, but it was improvised by Downey Jr.
Right. Yeah.
Doth mother know you weareth her drapes?
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Yeah, they're making fun of all of the what are these dudes? Like, why are they talking like that? It's Shakespeare in the Park.
Yeah, Shakespeare in the Park. He says,
Shakespeare in the Park. Yeah, it's like great beats.
Right.
What I like about this is it does the typical like you have to answer the whole good guys need to fight and then see how strong who is and why. So like how strong is Thor? Strong enough to crush the Iron Man suit, or at least that Iron Man suit. Is which one? Well, it comes later. Which more powerful, the hammer or the shield? You find out.
Yes.
Yeah, they answer all these little quick questions like one time in a little short fight. Not long.
Yeah.
Simple, but just quick world building.
You're right. Yeah. So basically we have this fight between Iron Man and Thor. Unfortunately, Cap just breaks it up when things getting really good, right? There's a great moment though where he tells Thor now to put down his hammer, and Thor actually responds by attacking him with the hammer, right? Which Cap like deflects with his shield though, right? And for me, I just saw this as foreshadowing of Cap acquiring Mjolnir in Endgame. Like I was okay.
But they did it in Age of Ultron.
Sowing seeds. All right. Yes, and Age of Ultron, true. Yeah.
But the one thing I forget is I forget why Tony's armor could absorb so much energy, because I know that was from Whiplash, right? Like that's a big thing about Tony. All the armors.
Oh, right, I forgot about that. Yes.
Yeah, all the armors just get better. So because of Whiplash powers shutting on his armor, he's like, oh, what if I could figure out a way to absorb energy? And Thor's lightning, he got a big boost of 400%. Well, how about that? Great little moment. Those things,
great moment.
This is where the comic book again, the comic book nerd in us like really appreciate shit like this now. Like, yeah, I would.
Yeah, exactly. So with all this stuff going on now, well, the three heroes pretty much put their battle on pause, right? Loki is apprehended. He's placed in a cell, right?
Right.
In Shield headquarters. It was literally designed for the Hulk, right? And I love Fury's come back at him with the ant boot. Love that. Like, no, enough said, right? Enough said.
It's a little bit a Joker for the Dark Knight-ish kind of vibe, but whatever, it's fine.
Like, and you see it also too in Skyfall as well too.
Right.
Let's have the villain inside of a cell, and and let's have him talk, do all the psychological stuff, and then eventually, when things start to hit the fan, now that's when he escapes and blah blah blah, right? And what follows here, for me personally, isn't just a moment of exposition between the main heroes, though, but just a pure example of how this movie works and why it works, right?
Right.
Everybody's in character; they're just bouncing off each other, right? Especially like Cap, Thor, and Iron Man, right? And there's it's pretty much the tone being lightened here, right? Especially with these clever pop culture references, like like Iron Man would say Point Break. He also says flying monkeys. I love how Cap says, I understand that reference, right?
Meme, popular
love
meme.
Love that.
Popular meme. This is like one of the most popular memes. I understood that reference. Because Cap was old enough to know with his
because that movie
was
right?
then, yeah, right.
Yeah, 39. Yeah. And also there's a great little reversal of Natasha's interrogation scene where basically she goes to Loki and asks him about Hawkeye, right? And he like tries to break her down the moment that she mentions, because she wants to remove the red from her ledger, right? And he's just like breaking it down, right?
Yeah.
And then there's a moment where she turns her back, and you're thinking she's crying, because you hear like whimpering and like you're a monster, right?
Yeah.
And then he says like I'm not the only monster here. It's like, Banner, so that's your play, right?
Right.
And there's like,
okay. When did you use the term mutant quim?
Yes.
I like that little exchange between Loki and Natasha, because it's like when he's saying your world in the balance and you bargain for one man, it's like you think saving a man who is no more virtuous and yourself will change anything. It's like you're in the service of liars and killers. It's like the people who you used to work for and SHIELD, what's the difference between them? They're all liars and killers.
Yeah.
And not only is that foreshadowed for the reveal that will come up later in this movie here, but Captain America: The Winter Soldier, Hydra.
Right.
I mean, yeah, right. But yeah, in terms of that scene though, I just love how it flips it really showcases Natasha's espionage skills, man. You know what I mean? Because she was able to manipulate him. You know what I mean? In that process, right? I love that, right? So similar to the previous scene where you just had the characters bounce off each other, right? Now they get to the reveal of SHIELD's Phase 2, right? Which is basically using the Tesseract to generate WMDs, right?
Right.
And the reason makes a lot of sense, right? Basically, it's Thor's battle with the Destroyer back in the first movie. Right. Was like, all right, we can't have this happen again. We can't be on the power like this.
It's some real, war and terror. Yeah, it's some real war and terror paranoia. It's like, look, these guys are super dangerous. So we have to stop fucking around. Like, sorry. And Nick Fury come good with it. He died the point. But it's a bad look.
And this for me, as far as a conversation scene, is one of the film's best too, because everybody have their own opinion, right? Some agree with others disagree, right? But everybody have like a valid point, But it's just how it clashes the moment that they find out, oh, this is what SHIELD up to, this is what Nick believes in, all that kind of stuff, and just that bouncing back and forth and the argument that ensues to is just stellar writing though. That's where you know your characters top to bottom. And lastly, before we get to your thoughts on that, lastly, I love how that also is it serves as a precursor to what we will get with Civil War, where basically the Avengers literally get cut down the middle because of their ideals and their beliefs and whatnot. I love that.
But I have a little question here. There's a shot in that scene where the camera just, it moves past.
It just tilts over and you see
the scepter.
The scepter.
And as we all know from future films, inside the scepter is the Mind Stone. Now, I need to ask this. Why would Thanos give Loki the Mind Stone? If there was any chance that he might lose it, why would he surrender his most prized possession to Loki?
That was for me, my personal logic was it was what he was getting in return.
Exactly.
Because the idea was that he was using that Mind Stone in order to subjugate one planet, so that he can then go and do what he needs to do for the rest of the universe. I mean, it's literally like the opening scene there where they talk about giving him the scepter and what he plans to use with it. So Earth had the Tesseract, which is what he needed. So he gives him the Mind Stone to subjugate this planet, and I assume once he gets the planet back, once he gets the planet on this, but he would probably have taken it back from him.
The thing is Thanos was just like, look, this is an easy job, just do this for me, kind of thing now. Like, it is not a big problem, but like, he didn't think Loki would have been that much of a fuck up, so it's like, whatever. And it didn't really hurt him in the long run because like when this push come to shove, he just went in, kick everybody ass and take it anyway. Like that was it. Done. So it didn't take, that's why I understood like that whole conceit about like who Thanos should have given what to and why, and if he failed. I didn't really see it like that. I was like, he could do this himself. It's an easy job. Look, he's still kind of a loser anyway, so whatever. I'm going to take it back anyway. So it don't really matter. Like, that's how I interpret all of that. Like, I didn't really overthink Thanos' plan because he's like, I got it. Like, if push come to shove, I could just cut everybody down. And any strong person who could take him down was killed off eventually when he started making his real moves anyway. Like, once Odin died, that was it. Like, more or less free reign to do everything else. I don't know. I didn't nitpick the MCU in retrospect because like they end up just stitching that bullshit together later on anyway.
Yeah, but it was also kind of insinuating that the Mind Stone was kind of turning everybody against each other.
A little bit.
Yeah,
that was
like
another
very,
implication.
very,
Like,
Lord of the Rings-esque kind of moment. Yeah.
Because you can nitpick that bullshit all the time. Like with how come Tony Stark didn't figure out about Hydra if he didn't have the spy equipment on the ship. Remember, he spy on S.H.I.E.L.D. Should he have figured out Hydra? It's bullshit like that. Like, who cares? Like, you could nitpick it and then have some nerd explanation later down the road anyway. So it's like, whatever.